You're watching Fantasy Studs and Suds, only on Fantasy Now Plus.
Fantasy Studs and Suds. I am Jeffrey Crisp, and alongside of me is my co-host, CJ Pudge LePage. Our segments today will include Fantasy Studs. Today we are going to look at Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Aiden Hutchinson. Fantasy Leagues, alternative methods of draft clocks. Fantasy Priority, when is a reach too much of a reach? Fantasy Suds, our beer selections of the week. And then Fantasy Funds, we'll talk a little bit about the Fantasy Cares Tadpole Bowl. Hey, Pudge, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. It's almost June, so a lot of big things happen in June. Last day of school is next week. We are getting ready in the LePage household to indulge in the summer festivities. So it's a fun time for everybody here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to summer. Obviously, last weekend, as we talked about, kind of kicked off the summer season in the Midwest. And after that, have seen a lot of rain off and on, a little bit of sun popping in there. But for the most part, it got a little colder. It got a little rainier, and it didn't remind me much of summer. But I'm looking forward to the next week or so. We got some beautiful weather coming up. So, and that is our weekly weather report for all of you in the Midwest.
So that's what it's becoming, isn't it?
That's our beginning. I think we might have to come up with something a little more entertaining for anyone watching. But let's go ahead and kick it off with Fantasy Studs. This week, amidst Kirk Cousins' absence from voluntary OTAs, Aaron Rodgers has been steadfast that he will not don the black and yellow in Pittsburgh. He has been steadfast that he will don the black and yellow in Pittsburgh. But sans ink on the page, sports commentators and fantasy analysts alike have questioned whether the Steelers should immediately pursue a trade for Cousins. What do you think, Pudge?
Well, I am a NFC North truther fan, long life lived up here in the great North, and we are not Aaron Rodgers fans. Last year, his completion percentage was down a little bit. He was down to 63%. He didn't have 4,000 passing yards. His completions percentage was down to 6.7%. He did have 28 touchdowns to his 11 interceptions, and he boasted a 90.5 passer rating. But there's another guy that might be cheaper that I think fits the Steeler mold. Much better. And come June 1st, he could be a lot cheaper.
Well, the Steelers have gone 21 straight seasons without a losing record. Now, albeit 4 of those were 8-8 before the expansion to 17 games. But at this juncture, I swear I could probably start at QB and the Steelers would still would not lose 9 games. But if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, and we'll talk a little bit about Kirk Cousins in a moment, can the Steelers be successful with Mason Rudolph?
They were before. What makes it so different now? I mean, I know that they're not the steel curtain that they used to be, but they still have a very, very talented TJ Watt. Their defense is chock full of guys that play their role, very much like the Patriots did in their legacy with Belichick. They play a certain brand of ball, and they play it every year. They play it in a very, very tough division as well. That would be the biggest holdup I feel for Mason Rudolph. dealing with that division is no easy task. But those players, they'll rally around him. They love Tomlin. Tomlin's a player's coach, and whatever Tomlin brings to the table, I think that they'll deal with it and they'll play well.
Well, setting aside that Kirk Cousins was the last, excellent quarterback to don the green and white for Michigan State University. I think Kirk Cousins is a much better option for the Pittsburgh Steelers than Aaron Rodgers. The biggest concern with with Kirk Cousins is his injury. How do you feel he'll come back? He'll respond from the injury that he sustained. There's been a lot of talk about his inability to, plant that right foot and to be able to, propel or to, propel himself into throws. Do you think that this year he will have recovered enough? Do you think he'll trust it? Because again, reports have been that, and when you watch some of the games, it appears that he hasn't trusted it. What do you feel about the injury?
Well, if you look at the timeline, him and Aaron Rodgers had the same injury, right? Achilles. Look at the time of Kirk Cousins' injury, and Aaron Rodgers did it in the first game of the season last year. He had a substantial amount of recovery time compared to Kirk Cousins. But if you look at their stats last year, I would take Kirk Cousins in a heartbeat over what Aaron Rodgers brought to the table regarding the Achilles injury. I think Kirk Cousins rushed it. Maybe he had a setback and didn't want to lose that job to a rookie. Pride, that's big for those guys. They'll suck it up. And we all know Kirk Cousins is no stranger to playing with injury. He'll tough it out, and he'll tough it out for the best of the team. A lot of people, they look at his 2024 season and I feel like they look at Michael Penix as a long-term starter. He only played 3 games last season. Those 3 games he did well, but if you look at his completion rate under pressure, it's 56.9%. Aaron Rodgers is 56.8%. So they're nearly identical there. And in 3 less games, Rodgers only had 300 more yards than Cousins. So if you want to compare apples to apples, I would take his 2024 season, put some context with that Achilles injury, and give Kirk Cousins the benefit of the doubt. I really think that him having another 12 months since the injury will give him that confidence that he had. Now he's going to throw some interceptions as he does, but so does Aaron Rodgers. They're both in the mold of Brett Favre with those big, long, deep balls that we all love to see at the end of games.
Well, and I think Cousins, yeah. I mean, anyone knows who's watched Cousins knows that once he's under immense pressure, he develops fumbleitis severely. But given time, he can throw with the best of the quarterbacks in the league.
Completion percentage under pressure: 56.8 Aaron Rodgers, 56.9 Kirk Cousins. So I don't want to hear it.
That's good to know. I'd like to know how many times Rodgers fumbles the ball compared to Cousins, but that's a different that's a conversation we can have later. I know, and I don't remember if it was Rich Eisen or who it was that stated that there's really no incentive for there's really no incentive for the Falcons to trade Cousins because after, like you just said, after June 1, I think they eat a huge portion of his contract, and most of his contract has already been paid for. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of dollars left on the table. Can you see Atlanta just stashing him and keeping him as backup to Penix in the event of either poor performance or injury?
No, I don't. Kirk Cousins is 37 years old. I don't think they would do that to a player, especially that caliber of player. It would be terrible for the locker room, I think. Kirk Cousins already making a statement that he doesn't want to be on the bench. His $27.5 million is what they would supposedly save this upcoming year after June 1st, but they're still going to absorb 37.5 of his dead cap space. Post June 1st. So it does make them appealing, saving $27.5 million after June 1st. That's if they just totally cut him. But what they're looking for is some compensation. They want a little bit of cap back to get some relief against his contract. And that could come in the way of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that would be a advantageous move on their part for a player that actually says he wants to play in 2025 and beyond. He wants to be the starter. So I have my feelings about Aaron Rodgers and how he goes about himself. But, I mean, the proof is right there. Stats don't lie. I mean, sometimes they do. They can make him say whatever we want to say, right? But I think for what you're getting, dollar for dollar, you're going to get a better quarterback that wants to be here and will fall in line under Tomlin.
So let's assume Cousins is traded to the Steelers. Where does that leave Rodgers? I mean, he's already stated he will not play for the New Orleans Saints. Where does it leave him?
Retirement. And or there's always a quarterback that gets hurt. What if Stafford got hurt in LA? I think they would be a prime candidate for him. They were a playoff team last year. They're a good team. They've got a great core of wide receivers. And guess who's there? Davante Adams. If anything happens to Stafford, I would say that their first call, if Rodgers is not a Steeler, it will be to Aaron Rodgers on the couch.
Okay. So this week, Detroit Lions edge Aiden Hutchinson was given his all clear to return to all football activities. Lions fan and IDP fantasy enthusiasts are eager to see Hutch back on the field after his ugly injury in Dallas last October. At the time, Hutch was on a tear, leading the NFL in a few stat categories, including sacks. The question after such a devastating injury and long recovery is, will he return immediately to form, or will we see a slow, progression? What do you think?
Well, that is a horrific injury for anybody, not just a football player. He will have problems with that injury until he is collecting Social Security. That being said, it might shorten his career, but I don't see it making a big deterrent on where he picked up or on picking up where he left off last year. I think he's going to be right there among the elite edge rushers. And if he's not first in sacks next year, he'll be top 5 barring another injury.
If there's one silver lining in the Lions losing in the divisional round last year, it was the Detroit Lions not rushing Aiden Hutchinson back. There was a lot of speculation that had if the Lions made the NFC Championship game or made it to the Super Bowl, Hutchinson would be activated and he would play. This allowed an entire offseason for him to recover, continue his rehabilitation, and work on strengthening himself. Do you believe that had he come back later in the playoffs, had the Lions moved on, that it could have caused problems this year versus what is now transpired?
Yeah, Aiden's one of those guys, right? High motor. You aren't going to keep him off the field with a couple of aches and pains. That being said, those doctors, they get paid a pretty good sum. And I don't think that they're going to put their career out there. If he was able and ready to go, maybe not 100%, they would. I believe that he would have been out there. But if he wasn't able to go, if he wasn't able to be Aiden Hutchinson, Dan Campbell is known for keeping slow playing injuries. I was surprised that they rushed David Montgomery back so quick last year, but they slow played Jamo when he came back from his ACL in the national championship game at Alabama. They like to make sure their players are 100% or damn near, and they don't rush players back, which is, it's a mighty testament in a league that you must win to stay on top, because winning cures everything in the NFL.
Do you think Aaron Glenn's departure will have any impact on Hutchinson's performance, or do you see him coming back true to form?
Well, them losing Aaron Glenn stinks. It does. But I think that's going to be more for the defensive backfield. As we know, Aaron Glenn was a longtime Jet and Saint prior to, as a defensive back in the NFL. And now we've got Coach Dreadlocks out there looking like Predator. And he is a linebacker, an ex-linebacker, in a darn good one too. So if anything, I think this is going to be a huge benefit for our edge guys, Jack Campbell and Anzalone. I really think them having a former linebacker, as their defensive coordinator now, is going to ramp up their blitz schemes, and I don't think they're going to play as much man as they have in prior years.
Well, the Lions will be eager for Hutch to return to form and pay dividends for his selection when the Lions were on the clock. But what happens when you are on the clock, and what defines the clock? So there's been a lot of talk about different draft clock methods in different leagues. And the biggest clock that's used during slow drafts is usually an 8-hour or 24-hour draft clock, sometimes with a pause overnight and other times without. But in leagues that I commission, I've had two different methods that I tried. Now, one was a method that we used for a startup. The other method was used for rookie drafts. So the first one, let's talk about the rookie drafts. What I've scheduled are what we call 24-hour windows, 12-hour windows. And with those 12-hour windows, when the draft begins, let's say it begins on June 1, the first draft selection is on the clock, 101, between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. The 102 is on the clock from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., and so on. And what this allows is everyone who has a draft selection knows exactly when they're going to be on the clock. Now, it doesn't mean you have to wait until you're, if the 101 makes a pick within 2 minutes, 102 is immediately on the clock. But they have until the expiration of their 12-hour window in order to make their selection. What this allows is it allows people to have lives. A lot of these rookie drafts are during the summer when people are taking vacations. Sometimes they don't have the ability to communicate. They might not have signal for their mobile devices. And so this really offers a sense of security for GMs to know when they have to make their selections. One of the downfalls of this method is a person could take until their expiration to make a pick. So if you have 101 and 102 that make their picks within minutes, that allows 103 to have approximately 36 hours in which to make a selection. And that has bothered some GMs at times. But this allows us to also deal with the struggles that come with multiple time zones. If you have GMs that are in different time zones, you once again have to find a way to accommodate everyone. So, Pudge, you've been in leagues where I've had this 12-hour window. I don't know why I keep saying 24. This 12-hour window. What are your pros and cons? What are the things you like and dislike about that approach?
Well, I do love the fact that I know when I'm going to draft. It's nice. You go in and say somebody drafts and you got your phone on D&D. Do not disturb for those people that don't like Dungeons and Dragons. I love the fact that I can shut my phone off and nobody can bother me. We've talked about it before on here. Family time's family time, right? But then I do like a draft that is moving along at a good pace. And after that time has passed, I'm usually pretty good at picking up where I left off, knowing who I'm going to draft, and going from there. But if I've got another pick in a couple of in the next couple picks, if I've got a pick in the next couple picks, I get antsy. I get a little irritated. I am impatient. I'm like a child on Christmas. The draft for me is fun. It is a ton of fun. It is the equivalent of Christmas morning of my 5 and 8-year-old daughter that I know what they feel like now. Again, and it's fun. It brings a different aspect to the draft that you also get those times where they're in training camp and somebody has an injury on a Friday afternoon and you don't pick. Let's say the last pick was Wednesday and you don't pick again until Monday. And you wait for that information to come through. I've seen GMs do that and play it slow. And that's a smart way to play. I mean, you are taking your time with your pick. It is your pick. And you are getting all of the information, not bits and pieces. Now, this is Dynasty we're talking about for the most part. And usually injury isn't too extravagant. But he may drop a player from, being a top 10 guy to a top 15 guy without that, year of eligibility because he did something bad in the offseason. He's got a really bad hamstring tear. He's not going to be ready until week 8. Those types of things, that's real world, and that's playing smart ball, whether it's patient or impatient, in my opinion.
Well, We have one GM we know very well who plays in a few of our leagues. We'll just call him Jay-Wiz. And he's watched this episode. I'm assuming he'll watch this one as well. So yes, we're talking about you, Jay. Has a tendency of bleeding out that time. So we had a situation, I know, one time where he had almost 4 days to draft because everybody in front of him picked so quickly. And he literally bled that entire time waiting on information on injuries. And I get I get the reason for doing that, but it also does really slow up the draft. However, if a person already knows, if the person picking after him already knows when that person's draft window is going to be, there's really no reason to be sitting there waiting. You know that, hey, you're going to be on there at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. at a certain time. And when you're there, you don't have to worry about going back to the clock. I've had problems where, hey, I kind of felt the pace of a draft and you get the cadence. And so you kind of, I'll come back in a few hours and I'll check. And the next thing you know, the 8 picks in front of you just all went off the board in, 20 minutes. And now you're on the clock and you had no idea. So by the time you pick up your phone and look, you're already at the end of your window. If it's 12 or 24 hours, that's not so bad. But if you're in a slow draft that is, 4 or 8 hours, you can really exhaust a lot of your time clock looking at what is available. And now, obviously, those opposed to this would say, well, you should already kind of have an idea of who's on, who's available and who you want to take and so on. But we all know that doesn't always work that way. So I've been a big pro of this 24-hour window method. I think it's really worked well. I think the only downfall has been when someone does bleed out a clock like Jay has. And it's something that is inherent in that system, but I think the benefits far outweigh the cons. Now, in one of our leagues, I know we just overturned that when we went to a 24-hour window with no pause overnight. And we had our draft in May, and that seemed to work well. I think if you have GMs that are all able to pay attention, you're not on vacation, you're not away for long extended periods of time, I think it works. But I think when you have individuals in different time zones or heck, even in different parts of the world, or you have people who travel for work, people who are, unable to review or consistently look at their phones, I think the 24-hour window or the 12-hour window is something that provides a benefit to leagues. Now, the method that we used for startups, another method instead of a clock, is something we call the time bank. And we've used this successfully, I think, now in 3 of our startup drafts in leagues, dynasty leagues, where each person, let's just assume there's a roster of 30 players. And we've decided we're going to give you an average of 2 hours per selection. You get 60 hours in a time bank. And from there, however long you take to make your picks, it extinguishes part of your time bank. So if you use 1 hour for your first 29 selections, that's going to give you 31 hours for your last selection. Of course, you're probably not going to use that if you've just rattled off 29 picks that quickly. But the time bank method, it still allows someone the flexibility of not making a pick right away, but it also keeps someone from constantly using the clock. If you have a 12-hour clock, you could literally have somebody use 11 hours for 30 selections. I mean, that 330 hours to make picks. And that's one of the reasons why when you're having a startup, I think the time bank system works really well. The problem is, I know Sleeper doesn't have a method of tracking that time. So it's up to the commissioner and the other GMs to manually track that. Now, if you're looking in the chat window and you're keeping on top of it, like I've had to, it's easy to do. If you're not keeping track of it on a daily basis, well, when you start seeing picks were picked a day ago, it's very difficult to manage the time bank accurately. So that's one of the things that a commissioner has to do is stay on top of that. I don't know if MFL and other platforms have the ability to utilize a time bank and utilize it effectively and manage that for the commissioner. But that's what we've done on Sleeper. You're laughing at something, so there must be some comments coming in.
We've got a couple of comments in here. All right. First and foremost, Josh, the one and only Josh Kimmel, Cold Brews and Hot Takes over there. We will get to the Aaron Rodgers talk. I apologize. I didn't see it right away. But yes. And then we have Mr. Lou Brunson, bowler extraordinaire, Lou Brunson. We love it. Jeff, he loves your shirt. Looks great on you.
Thank you, sir.
Evan, I love it. Yes. Slow drafts are exactly where it's at, and I get impatient. In home leagues, it's a little different. You can't just push. We'll lose some of our guys, but yeah, I agree. If you're in a draft, you're in a draft. And I think I answered that. I'll get back to you, Mr. Kimmel. But I do love slow drafts. Like Jeff said, the bank that he came up with. I don't know if he came up with it or somebody came up with it. It's nice. It's nice. It's a good way to keep everybody happy. And nobody has ever ran out, have they? No,
nobody's come close to running out. I mean, there was, I think there were the one startup we had, it was getting depleted, but it didn't come to a running out situation. First of all, let me just kind of comment real quick. Again, thank you, Lou. Just now getting some of my shirts in, some of the Michigan shirts that are coming in. I haven't purchased my one for Cincinnati yet, but I'll be doing that soon. Waiting for the glassware to come in, but always here to hype up Scott Fish Bowl, of course. And yeah, I mean, I get the concern about slow drafts. I think that's where I think as a league, you have to either commit. You're either going to have a slow draft or you're going to have a fast draft. And if you're going to do a slow draft, then you have to find that patience.
Really,
and you have to be able
you're either going to have a slow draft or a fast draft. Wow, that is great analysis, sir.
Thank you. That's about the best analysis you're ever going to get from me. So we'll just leave it at that. Hey, I'm the fantasy nobody. I don't know anything about this. I know less about fantasy than I do up here, but yeah. Well, it's the truth. It's the great analysis. That'll be about the best you get. But I mean, seriously though, I think slow drafts are, they're there for a reason. It's because people have real life and you're trying to. But there's another reason for slow drafts. You're trying to negotiate trades. You're trying to collect information. Now, granted, you should, any GM that's vested in their team should have already concluded all their research on players and kind of already ranked their players. They should already know where they stand with the draft board. But yeah, especially in a league where you have active trade offers and you have people constantly looking to move. I mean, we have one league that, there are trade offers flying around all draft long. And when you're trying to negotiate with 2-3 teams to trade your draft picks, it's important to have that extra time. And I think that's one of the big pros of having a slow draft versus a fast draft. Now, yes, can you do that in the 1 hour or 2 hours that Barely was talking about? Yes, but I think it's really one of those things where you want to have that time to be able to do that and live your real life. That said, I'm all for doing a fast draft and rattling off picks in a few hours if that's possible. I would love to do that live. It's impossible for you to always have people come together for a live draft. People are spread across the country, but if you can, that's the real way to do it. All right, what was next?
We could Zoom call that. That would be a historic. You know what I want to get? I want to get Evan and Josh in a league together because one is going to take his full 11 hours and 59 minutes, and Mr. Evan is going to really not like that. And it'd be some good content. I would love to see it. Not in our auction league that we're currently in, but it would be fun. Josh also. Yes, absolutely. I've done this as well. I've put my pick on the block and gone back to crickets. But that's just the way it is. It's fun that way. Jeff, I don't know if you are up for it, but since we do have Josh and Evan in here, and I don't know if they want to comment on Aaron Rodgers as well. I know Josh wanted to comment on Aaron Rodgers. Maybe we can cut out some fantasy funds and enter in some comments here.
Well, yeah, we can certainly talk about Aaron Rodgers. I'd like to know where they believe he'll end up. So, yeah, I mean, if we want to take a few comments on Aaron Rodgers, that'd be great.
Yeah, Aaron, he should have signed. Personally, if he wanted to play football full time, and not be a soap opera star, I get it that he has the most MVPs tied with Peyton Manning, and he also has a back-to-back MVP season in 20 and 21 COVID years. But I just think he's done. I don't think teams want to follow him. And then I can't see him leading the Steelers. He is very, very selfish. And as a selfish person, that doesn't fit the Steelers mold. I've said a lot in the last 10 minutes, but I can't think of anything positive to say about Aaron Rodgers. That's the problem. Lou Brunson over here, he says he's got the physical ability, but he doesn't. I agree. He just he physically has the tools, mentally has checked out. And that's why he wants all of his ex-players to play with him, because they all know the playbook that he has orchestrated that made him the MVP. And he could be lazy about it. He doesn't have to go into the meetings and explain and do all these other things that all the other quarterbacks are doing. That's my take on it. It could be wrong. I could be totally off base, but I think Aaron Rodgers is lazy.
Well, I think that's the difference between someone like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You know, Tom Brady was, he was still taking care of his body. He was religious about that. And he was still very vested in working with the team. And again, Tom Brady likes things a certain way as well, but Tom Brady had a much different way of going about it than Aaron Rodgers. And again, you could see Tom Brady sometimes get heated on the sideline, but it was just a different feeling. With Aaron Rodgers, it felt like that was more important. Him having control was more important than actually playing winning football. And I think sometimes when you said he was checked out, I think that's perfect, because I think that's exactly, he wants to be on the field. He wants to play. He wants to make the money, but he just doesn't seem to have the desire to do what it takes and to swallow his pride and play winning football. But that's just me on that particular one. Another comment that Lou had was he was talking about his. I agree with you, Lou, on the picks, on the auto queuing. One of the things I learned with the eliminators that I was in 10 different eliminators this year, Fantasy Care eliminators, and I was, I was struggling with that and other drafts and trying to keep track of them, and I was really relying on the auto queue in MFL to help me with that, and that was phenomenal. I won't queue so far as to go, 24 picks or 2 rounds in the future. But when I knew I was 8, 9, 10 picks away, I'd immediately queue my players, and that worked really well. Now, again, with the best ball, that's a little bit different than, say, a dynasty league. But if you've pre-ranked your players and you kind of know who you want in what spots, I think pre-ranking or in auto queuing is something that is very, very useful. Unfortunately, trying to get a lot of GMs to do that is not easy. We've talked about that before, and many of them they won't do it. So but I would agree with you, Lou. I think that if every GM would do that, well, then you would have a fast draft.
And if you ever want to cheat against most of us, Lou, we are all have our rankings posted at fantasypros.com. So if you want to know who we're going to pick next, you can. Just check that out. And back to Mr. Kimmel. This will be our one last comment. He says, in my humble opinion, I think it's ridiculous how much the hate the key gets. Okay. He does get an exuberant amount of hate, but so does Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is known as a big a-hole. And our, let's see, Matt, I'm drawing a blank. Atlanta quarterback, Matt Ryan. He was also known as a very demanding quarterback. Now, these are demanding quarterbacks, and these guys aren't getting the teams to try and tailor make them to fit him. When Matt Ryan went to the Colts, that did not happen. Now, we do have pairings of ex-quarterback, wide receiver, and I think that's generally just to make the terminology crossover a bit better. This is real football we're talking about. This is not fantasy points per game. These are not. These are things that go on in the real locker rooms and in meetings. But I don't see Aaron Rodgers being the guy that says, you know what, DK, you're supposed to be here. This is why. He's going to say, hey, DK, if you're not here, you're on the bench. And that's the way he's played football. That's the way he's played football for most of his career.
He will alienate players. He'll definitely alienate players that are not, living up to his standards. I mean, that has been long discussed and analyzed over his career. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. However, I think that, he may do very well in Pittsburgh. And so I don't know if he's the only answer. Again, like I said early on, Pittsburgh always finds a way to win. Is Aaron Rodgers going to provide that much more than Mason Rudolph? If you think he can, then most definitely he needs to go there. I just don't know, given what we've seen over the last, couple seasons, whether or not he's really going to be a tremendous upgrade over Mason Rudolph. And that's sad to say, but that's how I feel on that one. So anyway, going back to our clock discussion. Our clock is right now. It's like if we were on a 12-hour timer, we would be at like the 11:45 mark of our clock. So let's move on. Regardless of how the clock is configured, every GM faces a decision at some point in the draft. Do I reach for a player as the minutes and seconds wind down like they are on us right now? When is a reach worth it? And when is a reach too far? So now, whether in redraft or a dynasty rookie draft, the first several selections are rarely surprising. The top tier players are removed from the pool and the draft marches on. but it's the later selections where GM's individual player rankings begin to deviate. And a coveted player at that point starts to inch closer to the top of your personal list. So as with any draft, we begin to wonder if someone else will snag your target. It's happened to all of us. And we've been sniped more times than we care to. So that's when the internal debate of when to reach for a player that may even be beyond your personal rankings starts to play in. So when do you pull the trigger? So Pudge, what makes you decide to reach for a player?
Well, I will go to ECR and then I will go to ADP. ECR I'll check out on fantasynowplus.com as well as Fantasy Pros, who have a really good way to filter the expert consensus rankings. That being said, if I've got a guy, let's say Jaden Reed, right? He's going in the 5th round. And Mr. Jaden Reed is my guy. He's a Michigan State guy.
Go
I
green.
like the Packers offense. Go green, go white. Let's get him on my team. If I see that he's going in the 5th round, I will absolutely go one round, and I will pair their rankings against mine and see if there is a huge discrepancy. And if I know that there's other players in my league, we play in a lot of Michigan home leagues, and they know that we play, and we have our certain teams that we like. Those guys are going to get pushed up the board. It's just what happens. I feel comfortable going at least one round in the earlier rounds. I figure 5th round is an early round to me. Now, once you get in the 10th, 11th round, then I will start to reach a little bit further. If I have a guy that I really like, or if I have a rookie that I think can make an impact that year in all my redraft leagues, I'll go out and try and nab him. Now, in dynasty leagues, most of our rookie leagues, they are about 5 rounds. Now, when you are in round 3, reach away. You have such a low probability that it really doesn't matter. If you reach for a guy that you think is going to be undrafted,
Did we lose you? I think we lost Pudge. Well, I'll go ahead and take over from here. So for me, first of all, I mean, as far as ADP and ECR is concerned, yes, I'll always look at those, but I have my own personal rankings that I refer to, and I may have a player that, simply is in the lower, say a player that's in the lower 2nd or 3rd round. And I know that there's somebody in one of our leagues who is in need of that particular player, or who also happens to like that particular player. I may make the leap. It really depends. Now, I will often reach if I was also successful at one position and want to bank on potential ceiling. So for instance, let's say I needed a running back and a wide receiver on my team. And yes, I understand you're supposed to, draft for talent and whatever the cliche is, draft for talent and, trade for need. But I'll also try to fill holes on my roster. And so if I get a player that I want in the 1st round, or someone I was really targeting in the 1st round, then come around the 2nd round, I'm starting to already think about a reach depending on who the player is, where I have them ranked, and how other GMs in the league may also what they may be targeting. And I think that's one of the benefits of being in a home league or in a league where you've been with the other GMs for a significant number of years. You have a tendency of knowing who they like, what they're targeting, what they're wanting to do. And that gives you kind of an advantage knowing on when you can wait for a player or when you may have to make a jump. So I think it's unique in every league that you're in. If you're in a public league with people you do not know, you have no clue. So you lose that advantage or you lose that information that you would gain in a home league. But for me, if I'm making a reach, I don't do a reach necessarily, maybe in the later rounds, but I'm not reaching necessarily just as a flyer, but I'm looking at someone who, I may draft earlier than desired because, again, I've had somebody that I wanted, got them, and now I'm willing to take that risk. So that's kind of where I'm at that part. You had showed a comment there.
This is from Lou.
Reach is a good pick. If it works out, it remains a reach. If it doesn't work out,
you're not wrong.
Absolutely. I don't think it sounds silly at all. Looking back in retrospect at how your selections perform, but I think also your personal evaluations and how you draft. I think that's something a lot of GMs may not do. You have to go back and look at your strategy in past drafts. How did it work out? How were your selections, when you targeted them, and use that?
I will always reference Darius Geis. Darius Geis will be my North Star on that is a lesson learned game set match. Nothing silly until it's silly, right?
Well, and again, when you look back at your past draft performance and you start to see, things that you've taken, especially when you've taken risks. Again, it's in the first round, it's really hard. I mean, you can mess it up. I've messed up drafts, but it's difficult to mess up a first round draft selection, especially if you're early in the round. But when you get into those later rounds and you start deviating from your draft selections and you really start taking chances, I think it's important to look back and see where did those work and where did they didn't. When was a reach too far? And that brings me to the next question. When is a reach too far? Is there such a thing as too far of a reach?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not reaching in the first 4 rounds. Make it the first 5. I'm going with my board. I put a lot of work into it. I might as well use it, right? I believe that those players are where they are. Now, most of the time, they're within a 2 or 3 picks of ECR. Sometimes they're not, and so be it. But bless you. I believe that there is a 5-round no reach clause that should be implied and imported to every fantasy team, fantasy indoctrine, fantasy Bible that you may have. But there are those guys that continuously reach. And those guys, I have seen it work in their favor, and I have seen it work terribly. The variance is so high that I just stay par for the course for the most part and take my shots when they become available.
I love the participation we're getting from Lou today and from others in the out there. One thing I agree with you, Lou. It's a lot more art and feel than science. Yeah, I don't know that we can get it down to a scientific method, but I agree with you. You get that feeling based on your knowledge of other GMs. Like I mean, Pudge and I have played in so many leagues together. We already have a good idea of what the next person's doing. He's guessed my next pick and I've guessed his next pick. And it's pretty interesting because we've just played for so long together. And the same thing with other people that we play with. So I agree with you. It's definitely an art form. And like you said, it's a fine line. Now as far as reaching, I have reached on my rankings. Again, if I've had a player, it depends how close we're talking. I mean, if we're if we're 24 spots apart, I'm probably not reaching, but I've jumped players on my board to get to a player that I may want because I think that player may not be there. Once again, that goes back to the whole argument. Do you draft for talent and trade for need? Or do you draft to get the players that you believe are going to make your roster stronger? It is a fine line, and that's one that each GM has to decide how they want to approach it. There's no definitive way to do that. You have to do kind of what you feel is going to be best for your roster, and in the end, I'll make the decision, and I will end up with another losing season. But that's just me.
But it's your decision to make.
But it's my decision to lose, not someone else's decision.
There you go.
Okay. So GM should always use caution when reaching for a player far too soon. Pudge and I, however, throw caution to the wind when we reach for our favorite suds. Pudge, you kick us off.
Today, it's not exactly suds, but it's suds. Long drink citrus. But it's strong citrus. So give me all the 8.5 alcohol there is on a hot day like today.
All right. Well, you haven't gone to any of your macro standbys, so I'm sure that's coming. For me today, I have a beer by Bottle Logic Brewing out of Anaheim, California, Terraphobia. This is a vanilla fig stout. It's a 2024 vintage release. It is a powerful, I lost it. I think it was 14 point something. I did lose it. I think it was 14.5% ABV. I did say I'd bring the stouts out, and this is the time to do it. And I hope you don't see the spots on my glass here.
Looks crystal clear, sir.
If it looks like motor oil, it's got to be good.
That looks delicious. Looks like chocolate.
Well, and again, this particular one, Bottle Logic. I know some of those in California are not big Bottle Logic fans. Other ones are. I like Bottle Logic. The only problem is a lot of their stouts are very, very sweet. But if you let them warm, again, you should never drink a stout fully cold or chilled. But if you have a stout here, these are usually really, really good. So let's taste this.
Cheers. Hey, while you think of that, we've got a couple of comments over here. Some short questions. We'll rapid fire these, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thoughts on Garrett Wilson and redraft? Love him. He's going to get 1,200 yards. He's going to get 160 targets. That's it. That's all you need to know. Whether the tight ends are the tight ends, whether the touchdowns come or not, doesn't matter. JSN, Olave, Ayuk, or Kodak. I don't know who Kodak is. But you're not touching those. I would touch JSN. I know that Sam Darnold is not a great quarterback, but there's nobody there. He's going to get 160, 170 targets. They've got rid of Tyler Lockett. They got rid of DK Metcalf, and they have the ghost of Cooper Kupp hanging out there. I think Cooper Kupp was brought in to be the run blocker for that team. He's going to be the run blocking wide receiver, as he was such a good run blocking wide receiver over in McVay in his playbook. Olave is a wide receiver 1 when he touches the field. Now the problem is touching the field. On redraft, I'm willing to take a flyer on Olave, especially at where he's going in the 4th round. And I think we got everything you wanted there, Mr. Tyler Sperry. But if you have anything else, you can reach us over on Discord. If you're part of our Discord. Logan. I don't know who Logan is either. Logan
Thomas?
Thomas?
I'm talking about JSN.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I love JSN. I think he's going to. I think we touched on him a little bit during the Extra Life 24-hour charity stream, and I think it's he's going to be someone who is just going to be targeted heavily. And again, you're targeted. You have opportunities. You convert those to fantasy stats. And I think that he is going to be incredible with DK Metcalf gone. The other one's gone. I'm drawing a blank. Sorry. And Lockett's gone. So I mean, it is all JSN. And I think it's going to be all JSN all season. Whether it's Sam Darnold or whether Geno Smith would still be there, I think he's going to do very well. So I'm definitely looking for JSN, especially if he's available at the right spot.
I don't think he likes Ohio State wide receivers. I mean, us over here in the Big Ten, you and I are Spartan guys, but over here he doesn't like JSN, Olave, or Mr. Garrett Wilson this year. Come on, man. That's all they do is produce wide receivers over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Olave. I don't know what's really going to happen with him in New Orleans. I think that I don't think I have any shares of Olave really. I think those shares I had, I traded away. So at this point, I would not go out of my way to get him in a startup or a redraft unless the price was right. I do agree with Lou once again. Agreed. You get a player at the right price. If he's fallen to a spot where he's worth the cost, why wouldn't you take it? Especially if you can stash him on your bench. I mean, I'll take Olave as my wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 5, or again, you can't. I think that goes back to where you can have a strategy going into a draft. You could have your rankings, but in the end, as the draft unfolds and things transpire in a way that you didn't expect, you have to be able to pivot and you have to be able to recognize value. And when that value's there staring you in the face, you take it, especially if it's just going to be a stash in your bench. So I agree with you there on Lou as well. The one thing I want to state, is there anything else that we needed to touch on? Are we good?
Okay. A lot of people are saying that Olave doesn't have a quarterback. Neither did Garrett Wilson for 2 years. Neither did the best wide receiver, in my opinion, Justin Jefferson last year. I don't think that Sam Darnold was a very good quarterback. So I think that JSN will be just fine as far as that. And then same thing with Drake London. Drake London will be just fine. He'll get hyper targeted over there with I drawn a blank on their QB. We just talked about him. It won't be Cousins. It'll be JSN. JSN isn't Cousins. No, you're correct.
Oh, wait. Yes.
But also Jefferson wasn't Jefferson until he was Jefferson, correct? I mean, nobody picked him as the number 1 overall wide receiver. JSN, he is in that category. And that's it. That's all I can think of right now. What about you, sir?
Well, talking about, let's go back to our beer real quick. And I was glad we could answer some of those questions during this segment, but we definitely love our
Michael
beer.
Penix Jr. that I was thinking of. Sorry.
Yep. We love our beer, but we also drink responsibly. And if you are out, if you're not drinking at home and you are out, please always have a plan for safety before you drink. That draft picks don't matter. There's no pivoting from that. Make sure you have a plan before you drink. So, cheers.
And my second beer of the day, because I have to equal you in alcohol. This is a 7.5. This is a hazy, hearted IPA. Local.
Bell's Brewing Hazy Hearted
And delicious.
IPA is not as good as Two Hearted Ale, and I'll continue to call it Two Hearted Ale. I don't care what the acquirers of Bell's have changed it to Two Hearted IPA. It's Two Hearted Ale. We're going to leave it at that. That is a decent variant of Two Hearted Ale, but nothing beats Two Hearted Ale. I love that beer. Well, we're not to the end of our beers right now, but for most parents, we're coming very close to the end of the school year. So we all love summer for myriad reasons, and most of us here eagerly await football training camps while we dive deep into our fantasy drafts. But for many fanatics, the responsibilities of parenthood are increased once school is out. So over the next 2 weeks, most school districts will enter summer vacation, and parents must adjust to the summer paradigm. Pudge, you are a father. How do you adapt to that change?
No rules. We have cereal for dinner. We eat Hostess cupcakes for lunch. No. We keep a pretty rigid household. I'm a former Navy man. So bedtime, it makes it a lot easier. Kids don't have to go to bed when the sun's out. But other than that, it's a good time for the LePage household. And summertime is the best time in Michigan, as you can attest, as you sit across from a lake right now.
Well, for me, I'm a little bit older than some of us out there in our audience, but for me, it was
46?
It was all about What's that?
Are you 46?
We'll go with that. So for me, summer, caused some issues. Like a lot of parents out there, when you have your children, you have to start finding, daycare that's going to cover the entire day, or programs that are going to watch your children as you work. And that can become very difficult. But, there's a lot of things you have to prioritize when it comes to your work-life balance as well as your children. One of the things I know parents will start deprioritizing other activities, and fantasy football or fantasy is amongst them. We've talked before, and we'll likely talk again, about the balance of real life and fantasy. So what does this time of year mean for you and your fantasy game?
Right now, I'm in a bunch of rookie drafts, and it makes it difficult to focus on the kids full-time, work full-time, and fantasy should be full-time. I know it doesn't all equal out like that, but it takes a back seat. As you know, with summer coming up, less articles are generated by me. I wish I was a teacher. I could generate articles all summer long for you guys. I know you do too, Mr. Crisp, but it's just, them's the breaks, and the kids are happy and we spend a lot of time outside. I don't like to subscribe to the give your kid a tablet and or electronic device and let them entertain themselves. I am a 80s child, and we got kicked out of the house, and we had to come back home when the lights were on, the street lights, that is, if you have street lights in your area. But that is what I grew up as, and I try to instill that in my children. So far, it's taken by my daughter, not so much my son. My son is a very electronic driven man.
Well, I think for me, a lot of times I have to, I think it's true with any kind of familial relationships. You kind of try to fit in fantasy wherever you can. So obviously there are breaks where you're away from your children, especially at night. I can see, doing a lot of the fantasy or relegating your fantasy to nighttime activity, because that's the time when your children are in bed. That's the opportunity that you have to really address that without, taking away from that engagement that you have with your children. So I think that's one of the things that parents probably often do, is they find those windows of opportunity to look at their leagues. Not saying you wait until, the old bathroom break to check your rosters or read your research, but I'm not saying that people do not do that. And I think that's something that really comes into play in the summer, because, between work and your children, there are real life responsibilities that just simply require your attention and focus. And so when you're in a lot of leagues and you're juggling leagues and work and, a family relationship, it really becomes a lot. And I salute anyone who's able to juggle all that today and do it successfully. So we have a couple more quick questions. Let's just rattle these off real quick. We're already long anyway, so what's a few more minutes? Thank you, Lou. Yes, this is actually an incredible. I just got done talking about how bottle logic is often off. Let me try that again. Hey, it's 14.5%. So I'm bottle logic is.
Hey, I'm equal. I'm equal.
Not quite. Bottle logic, like I said, their stouts are usually awfully sweet. This one is not. And the fig and vanilla are incredible in this one. So this, if you can find a bottle of Bottle Logic's Terraphobia, I highly recommend you pick that one up. And then we have a question from Tyler. What do you think of Ayuk not going to OTAs? For me personally, I think, they're voluntary.
I think he's got a torn ACL. I don't think it's a big thing at all. I don't see that being an issue. Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah,
I wanted to answer that one.
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No,
what were you going to say?
I'm moving on. Nope. So then we go to Lou, and when doing rankings, which position you rank first and which do you rank last, and why do wide receivers go on forever? Well, for me, when I'm ranking, I rank by position first. So it doesn't really matter which order they go in. I'm ranking all the positions. And then from there, I'm blending them together. That's where, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, got to rank those kickers, because kickers are people, Pudge.
By the way, Jeff is the perfect person to answer this question, because this is exactly how he does his teams.
Yep. So I rank all those positions. Once I have them there, then it's kind of a replacement method. I start with, who's my number one? And then who's my number two? I'll start putting players in with the quarterbacks. Then I'll start putting the running backs in with the quarterbacks. Then I'll put the wide receivers. And then it's kind of a lot of shifting. And I don't know what that looked like on camera with my hand moving up and down. But it's one of those things where, once those players are ranked, then I start just kind of positioning them in, and it's tweaking. I'll look at my rankings and sometimes realize like, what the hell was I thinking when I did this? And I'll start moving players around again. And in fact, I can start moving players around in between drafts, even before OTAs or, spring camps open or anything like that. So that's kind of how I approach it. I don't know how you do it, Lou, and I don't know how you do it, Pudge, but that's I have to do positions first. I can't do an overall ranking and start putting people in there. I have to do each position. Then I start blending them together into an overall. I hope that answers your question, Lou.
I have a totally different stance on that. Mine is all analytical. I go through all 32 teams. I go through all of their offensive coordinator change, head coaches change, and then I take their plays that are expected, give them a certain percentage to each player, and it's a formula. Amongst that formula, I take those and I go by years I think this player will be playing for Dynasty. Redraft is much simpler. Redraft is a lot easier for me as far as, guessing these players and where they're going to go. I don't have to look at the contracts as much. But the contracts are a huge thing. If you look at a player's contract, money and draft capital will tell you exactly everything you need to know about a player. Those are my core cornerstones as far as projecting player points, as far as fantasy, if that makes sense.
I think so. I've been drinking 14.5% beer, so we'll
Feeling
see.
a little light?
That's what I've been drinking this quite fast. Not, I don't know, light, but no, excellent beer. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Lou. Again, more about how I do it rather than the methods I use. Again, it's some of it's gut feel for me. Some of it is I don't get too deep into the analytics. I know a lot of people do, and that's probably the way to go is to get deep into the stats. For me, it's
how many championships do I have in our home league?
If you're talking about Last Bastion Fantasy Football League, you have 2.5.
Thank you. How many do you have?
2.
That's more. Listen to me, Lou. Listen to me. But I think are we going to skip fantasy funds today? I think we're pretty good, right?
We already talked a little bit about fantasy funds.
No, we didn't talk about the tadpole.
It was a shared title, Lou, for the DeMar Hamlin season, where they agreed just to split the championship rather than fight it out. Again, no one's rule books covered a situation like that. And instead of me having to make a determination of what we were going to do, they just agreed to share the championship. And so they get 0.5. So when I win this year,
we were the bigger men, and we get half points.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, I was. Yes, it was very. Oh.
He is recovering from the knee injury, so yeah, he won't be at OTAs. That I think I tipped on that, but thank you for setting that straight for us.
All right. Well, let me finish one more thing before we make this the second 24-hour stream of the month.
This is the long one. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, this is the long one.
I do love the comments though.
But you know what? Having the comments and questions in there, I'd rather sit here for 2 hours talking about this stuff than to just listen to us, because if it's just us talking and we're not answering questions, everybody's just going to fall asleep. So with that said, I want to just kind of rattle off one last thing. Over the last several days, Fantasy Cares has announced registration for its first ever Tadpole Bowl, the college football equivalent of Scott Fish Bowl, there are several online and a few select live divisions. Now, I have heard that there's a possibility that the live divisions have not received the registrations that were commensurate with the original interest. So those might be converted to online divisions. But if you are interested in college football and a spot in the first ever Tadpole Bowl, please go out to scottfishbowl.com. And I suddenly drew a blank of where you have to go after that, but I'm sure you can find it. So scottfishbowl.com and look for the Tadpole Bowl. Now, I have never played college.
Motor oil. That's why we don't drink motor oil on live camera.
Better than antifreeze. But anyway, so I have never played college. I've never played college only or campus.
Look at you go.
Formats. I have never played college only or campus to Canton formats, but I have entered an online division for the Tadpole Bowl. I'm in the Michigan Wolverines division. Ugh. But hey, it's the closest one to. It's the only one in Michigan, so that's what I'm in. What's
Michigan
that?
Wolverines. Aiden Hutchinson, Wolverines.
Don't start upsetting the Wolverine fans out there.
Are there any?
When it comes to college football, I may be one of the least knowledgeable people you will ever meet. So this is going to be a challenge for me being in this league. But as with Scott Fishbowl, this is all for charity. So fret, I shall not. Have you ever played college only or C2C?
The only thing I have actually done is Devy Leagues. I love Devy Leagues. I don't get it twisted. But this is beyond my scope. This is tough stuff. You really have to put your stakes in as far, and the player pool is astronomically bigger than what it is in the NFL. You're going to have players that are picked that nobody has seen, much less heard of. And they're going to score points because people are familiar with these teams. And that's where it becomes a charity. It is a charity first and foremost. And we all have to remember that, right? It's fun to win, but all of this stuff is going to go towards somebody having a much better time, much better life. And whether we win or lose on a guy that's in 1AA scoring 1 million fantasy points, but still in a Power 5 conference, it's going to be crazy. Elijah Arroyo, last year, if you look at him, there's going to be some huge surprises. Harold Fannin Jr. Led the NCAA in receptions and yards. He was a Division I MAC guy. So if you pick that guy, you could possibly have some huge points.
Well, you figure there's probably 10,000 players across all of the university, maybe even more than that across all of the university rosters. So I'm going to begin my ranking of those players tonight. Call me in October and see how I'm doing with that. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun, but again, it's all for charity. I don't know a thing.
Absolutely.
This may be the first time that I actually have to use someone else's cheat sheet to do a draft. And hey, maybe because of that, I'll actually win for once, but we'll see how that goes. Pudge, where do we find you?
You can find me at fflepudge at fantasynowplus.com on Blue Sky, and then ff_lepudge over on X.
And for me on X, you can find me at ffcommish_YIS, and on Blue Sky at ffcommishyis.fantasynowplus.com. gmail.com. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you in the audience for listening. Thank you, Tyler and Lou and Josh, for all of your questions and comments. Thank you very much. Our next episode will be Friday, June 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern and noon Pacific. Please follow Fantasy Now Plus on Discord, TikTok, Blue Sky, and subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. Until next time, for CJ Pudge LePage, I am Jeffrey Crisp. Be good, be kind, be responsible, and cheers.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.